Welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome. This is the Intersect Radio program. I'm your host, Aaron A-Train Smith. We're powered by the Intertalk Radio Network, the worldwide leader in music business talk. And that tune you just heard as an opener is by my really good friend and guest today. He's a singer, songwriter, producer, along with Rich Mullins. He was the co-founder of the Rich Mullins and Ragamuffin Band. His music was featured in a 1996 movie, That Thing You Do. I'm sure you all know that movie. It's a great Thanksgiving, Christmas, snowed-in kind of day movie. He's also had music in My Big Fat Greek Wedding. He's been in writing music for TV. He had music in Dawsons Creek and other independent films and numerous other TV shows. He's also produced artists such as Rich Mullins, Amy Grant, Aaron Neville, Michael W. Smith, and many others. Along with this, he has written, performed, and produced 4 solo projects of his own. His first solo record, Rick, Elias, and the Confessions, was voted as one of the top 100 greatest albums in Christian music by CCM Magazine. His work has also been nominated and awarded by the Gospel Music Association, the United Catholic Music and Video Association, and the Nashville Music Awards. He is currently a songwriting instructor at the Contemporary Music Center in Nashville, just spreading his gift to just a ton of teenage students who are just eager to learn from him, I know. Would you please welcome my good friend, Mr. Rick Elias. How you doing, Rick?
I'm doing good, buddy. I don't know if they're so eager to hear what I have to say, but they're going to hear it either way when they get to class.
Yeah, you know,
it depends.
Yeah.
Person by person, case by case basis. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, man. I'm going to jump ahead right now, and we'll come back. I just spent the earlier part of the afternoon listening to Job. That is a great record. That is a great record. I knew you did the record. I remember you doing it, but I had never heard it. And
yeah,
so
well, that's the way of the world these days. You know, the way music is distributed. You know, you can make it. It's just getting anybody to hear it. But thank you very much.
Yeah, to everybody who's listening today, get that record. Job is a great record. Great songwriting. It sounds great. I mean, and just the concept, the suffering concept of the whole thing. It runs through the record. It's that darkness runs throughout the record, and it's great.
It was a weird time, if I can interject. I mean, I knew I had wanted to make, I had laid low for so long, and I was never real good at being a staff songwriter, even though that's the way I earned my living for many, many years. I was always more of if you gave me a project, I could write for a project, like That Thing You Do or something like that. And I was also a writer that really did best when I felt like I had something to say. That's when it really worked the best. And for years, I just felt like I'd had my chance to say my piece, and finally, after teaching for a number of semesters, I really kind of have to credit my students with kind of reawakening in me. I felt like I had something to say, but it wasn't going to be real uplifting. I was just really, really fascinated with the idea of suffering, the concept of Job in the Bible, the book of Job, and how we relate to it contemporarily. Not a real feel-good theme, by the way. I mean, it's like, it's kind of hard to sell that, pitch people, and I was like, yeah, this record's going to be about suffering. It's real uplifting. But right as I was writing it, I had an accident with my shoulder and had to go into surgery. And then my hand was paralyzed for, a good 6 months beyond the very extensive surgery they had to do. And it still has not returned completely to this day. But it was almost like, I know this isn't the way it is, but it was sort of like, well, if you want to know about some suffering, I'm going to give you a little bit of personal suffering to deal with. Because, the one thing we as musicians, or guys like us, have been doing our whole life, we can't imagine ever not doing it. It takes us a lifetime to get to a point where we can do it at the level we do it. There's a difference between us and athletes. It's like you can get better and better and better as a writer and as a musician, with the possible exception of singing. There's a certain point, I think, where your voice maybe can't handle it anymore. But and for that to be taken away, I'd never really contemplated it, and it really forced me to go even further inward. So the record was made with a lot of tears and sweat and blood. It was very, very difficult to finish, and it makes me happy to hear you say that you kind of sense it even when you're listening to it. I hoped that it was coming through, that it was for real, and it was sincere, and it was legit on that level.
Yeah, it's really good. That first lyric in "Do Ya," I am for the mad ones, laughing while in the night, while praying for the light, hanging on for dear life. Man, yeah.
I co-wrote that with a dear friend of mine. He was my best friend growing up. His name is Luis Alberto Urrea. I got to say it like that. He's a professor at the University of Illinois Chicago, and a Pulitzer Prize nominee for one of his I think it was for. He's written so many books. I think it was for Devil's Highway, but he's a fantastic author, and we're old friends, and we kind of went back and forth, old school, with lines. I would come up with a line, he would come up with a line, and I am for the mad ones. Wow. I really am.
And that instrumental. Right, haven't we all? In many La Quinta hotels.
Yes, I know. Just wake up screaming, "Where am I?
Which city is this La Quinta in?" Yeah, but man, I also like that instrumental section. It's got like a Beatlesque Beach Boys sort of thing going on there.
Yeah, I kind of gave myself permission to do whatever I wanted to do on the album musically. I didn't hold myself, back when, when we were making records for labels, you had to satisfy radio and retail and all these other people, marketing people. And hopefully you could stand your ground a bit and make something. But with this, it was, front loaded. It was a Kickstarter project. And I thought, well, I don't have to answer to anybody. I'm just going to make music. If it sounds good to me, I'm putting it on.
Right.
It's going, and I appreciate you saying that, because that was one of my favorite parts of the album. I worked a long time on that. A lot of
I could hear it
singing and tracking and playing.
Yeah, and that bridge too. That bridge is great. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. And the last chord, what chord is that?
Yeah. That's a weird, I couldn't even tell you what that chord is. I'd have to think about it and look at it on a guitar because I'm kind of detuned on the guitar. It's almost like it's a jazz chord. It's like I don't know what that chord is. But it came out of nowhere and I went, I'm in. All I knew is I played it by accident once. I went, okay, that's the last song of the chord. That's the last chord of the song. That's I'm not putting it anywhere else. It's right there.
Yeah, man, it's brilliant.
There's that open flatted five, flatted, third. So it's a bizarre chord. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the icing on the cake. It couldn't have ended any other way.
Yeah, right. I kind of thought that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of builds up, and it kind of leaves a half line on the lyric. I'm still enough of a craftsman that when I look at something, I'm kind of looking for signs of intelligence in lyric, and I hope I'm composing accordingly. Rhyme scheme and how words flow, what they mean, what that's, there's so much that goes into songwriting, that if it was so simple, almost anybody could. And the weird thing is almost anybody could write a very simple, catchy song. But when you really start delving into the craft of songwriting, you notice that there's, even in some of the simplest songs, there's a great deal of intelligence and craft involved in it,
Well, Job is full of craft, my friend.
Well, thank you.
It's craft.
I appreciate you saying that. You and a couple dozen other people concur, but they're all people I like and whose opinions I respect. So that makes me feel good.
Cool. All right. I had to jump ahead and let you know.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Let you know that. Share
surprise.
That. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back. Let's go back to, when you were a kid and where you grew up, or how you got into music and all that sort of stuff.
Well, the short story is this. I grew up in San Diego. I was the oldest with two younger sisters, all different fathers. My mother was I come from an immigrant family. I didn't know my father. The second stepfather was a nice guy, but he was gone by the time I was 10. I mean, he was really out of the house by the time I was 5. And then left San Diego, and we didn't see him again for many, many years. The third stepfather, however, was abusive and an alcoholic, and physically, and as well as emotionally and sexually abusive to everybody in the house.
How old were you then?
I was 7. So I grew up in a home of extreme. You never knew when you were just going to get clocked, and I mean closed fist for anything. You never knew when you were going to be in trouble or not. Very fearful, violent. Would he beat my mother or he beat me? And the worst thing about that isn't the physical abuse. You hear this all the time. It's like you learn to take the physical abuse. It's that he was around. My mother stayed married to him till I was 13. And he lifted his hand to her one night, and I grabbed his hand, and I said, "This isn't going to happen anymore." And you know me, I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 6'4", and I suppose when I was 13, I was probably already about 6 feet tall, so I was probably at least as tall as him. And they divorced, but he was still around for many years, and his horrible influence was around. But the worst thing about it is it takes away your childhood.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, it's not the physical abuse. It's just my childhood disappeared the day he walked in the door, and I grew up very closed. It's kind of hard to believe it if you know me now, but I mean, I was very introverted and very much to myself. I didn't know how to articulate all these emotions I had about, and which any kid would have, and plus, dealing with feelings of low self-esteem and just the after effects of his presence in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody in my family had ever played music or done anything like that. Nobody had ever been in the music. Nobody had even gotten to college. So that was really kind of the idea for me. But I wasn't much of a student. But I was so drawn to music as an escape from a very young age. From about 9 years old on, I remember disappearing into music in a way that was, I think, uncommon for somebody my age. And by nook or by crook, I got a bass and started playing bass when I was 13. And very shortly thereafter, I started playing with guys. It turned out I kind of had a knack for it. And my dear departed grandmother saved up what little money she had and bought me a little bass amp, a little Vox bass amp. And I was able to join a band. And usually playing with guys older than me. Mm-hmm. And by the time I was about 15, I had one of the best gigs I've had to this day. It was in San Diego. My mom was a cocktail waitress at one of the hotels on the bay. It's called the Catamaran, and it was owned by the same guy that owned the Bahia. So, and they had this steamboat that would go around the bay to all the resort hotels all summer. There were probably about 4 or 5 of them. It would make stops, pick people up. It had a bar up top for the adults, and down below on the steamboat was where the kids would go. And they served Coca-Cola and stuff. Well, that's where we played all summer. I made $75 a week, and there were new girls in town every week. They'd come in here, they'd leave, and then a whole new shipment would come in the next week, and it was heaven for a 15-year-old boy. Yeah. I'm telling you, it's still one of the greatest gigs I've ever had in my life. It was so fun and innocent, and it was a blast. We played, I think, 5 days a week, something like that. Got really good. And then when I was 16...
Hey, Rick, hold that thought. We got to take a break, commercial break.
Sure.
And we'll continue that. This is great. Thank you. You're listening to Intersect, and my guest, Rick Elias. We'll be right back after this.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
Joseph took his wife and her child, and they went to Africa to escape the rage of a deadly king. There along the banks of the Nile, Jesus listened to the song that the captive children used to sing. They were singing, my deliverer is coming, my deliverer is standing by. My deliverer is coming, my deliverer is standing by.
Welcome back, everybody, to Intersect, powered by the Intertalk Radio Network. Today, my guest is Mr. Rick Elias. That fantastic voice you just listened to, that was My Deliverer by the late Rich Mullins. Rick and I had the pleasure of recording that song together and working together many months after that. And it's just a pleasure to have him here on the show. And we were talking at the end of the first segment about your early musical adventures and at the Catamaran Hotel. So,
well, it got good a year later. So I'm 16, and I'm playing. But by now, I've got an acoustic guitar, and I'm writing songs. I think I'm trying to write songs. I'm seeing myself as something other than just a bass player in a band. And we had a very healthy Youth for Christ chapter in San Diego, and they mostly recruited their students from some of the wealthier parts of town, like Mount Helix, La Jolla, wherever. And the high school I went to was divided right in half. It was lower middle class, the kids that came from where I came from at the time. Working class and lower middle class. It was Claremont. But a new subdivision had sprung up that hadn't built a high school called University City that was largely professionals, doctors, lawyers, academics at that time. And so their kids were going to our high school as well. So we had a huge high school. And all the cute girls lived in University City, so you always wanted to go over there. And I started going to Youth for Christ meetings there, and they were really more like just, teen rallies. They weren't really Bible studies or anything. They were introducing kids to Christ, and they had it's a story in itself. I'm not even going to go into it about how it happened, but I wound up coming to Christ via Youth for Christ, and largely because of their inclusion of music, because we were such a large chapter, all those early Jesus movement guys, they would have big citywide concerts. So they would bring down Larry Norman, or they'd bring down Randy Stonehill, or, there were a whole bunch of early acts that were all pretty good. I mean, it was before the creation of contemporary Christian music. So these guys were all guys that were trying to get record or had regular general market record deals. They were real players, real singers, real, they knew what they were doing. And they would bring them down. They would play, and they were all pretty good. I mean, Larry Norman in particular was magnificent. So was Randy Stonehill. Just wonderful. And I discovered, and they weren't singing, hymns. They were singing personally written songs about their faith that could be funny or insightful or moving or whatever. It was kind of out of the singer-songwriter in rock and roll. And I went, wow, you can do these two things? That's awesome. And it opened my heart anyway to the idea that because I didn't come from a church home. I mean, it's like I didn't know from it. You know, I had my first Holy Communion, and my mother was divorced. And back in those days, you were out, you know, and that was about it. So anyway, at 16, I accept Christ, and I take it very, very seriously because I'm a screwed up kid. But I'm learning how to play. I'm learning how to write. I have this little Neil Young kind of high voice, you know, and got through high school and even went to Christian college for a year, which was a disaster. I went to Azusa Pacific.
Okay.
Out there in Azusa, California.
Why was
it was a disaster? Because here I am in my late teens, you know, late adolescence or late teens, and I'm taking the Bible, like I'm clinging to it like a man clinging to a board after a ship has gone down the middle of the sea. I'm taking it deadly serious. And kids that were coming, like, say, pastors' kids or kids that came from very nice, well-to-do families where it was just culture. Of course we go to church. Everybody goes to church. You know, there were no granteds in my view of the faith. There were no givens. So they were a lot looser with it. They were more promiscuous. They were more, I don't know how to describe it. And to me, I was like, you know, so needless to say, being a young man and growing up with all the things that young men grow up with, and you know, and I'm remaining chaste, and I'm really, really taking this seriously. You know, I get to college and kids are doing drinking binges and having sex, and I'm like, what is going on here? It's like I couldn't figure it out. Plus, I was a self-taught musician, and they were known for their music there. But I was as good as anybody else in the music program. I just wasn't. I was self-taught. But it was made clear to me, you have no place in the music program. You know, you can't read, you know. So I became a literature major.
Because you were a Christian?
No, because I was self-taught. I mean,
because you were self-taught.
Okay. At college, yeah. But I was as good as anybody else in the program. I even tried to do some contemporary stuff, you know, but it was just like, I just didn't fit in with anybody there. That was my point. I mean, I didn't fit in with the pastor's kids. I didn't fit in with the music program. I didn't fit in anywhere. And there were some bright moments. A couple of pastors that got it, that looked past my inarticulate and rather sarcastic. I began to use sarcasm and a certain, you know, I'm a big guy. I could kind of put off a vibe, you know, like, don't talk to me. And
I know that vibe.
You know, I mean, yeah, I will hurt you if you come one step closer. And I'm not kidding. I mean, that kind of a thing. It was just, you know, me being just in self-preservation mode. Yeah. And there were a couple of bright spots, a couple of professors that saw through it, especially when I was going to leave, and pulled me aside and said, stay, you know, I'll mentor you. But music business was calling. Friends of mine had a band. They were signed to a subsidiary of a major label of Casablanca Records. They had publishing deals with a major publishing company, and they had a recording studio, which was hard to come by back in those days. And, you know, and I joined the band, and that's where my real apprenticeship in the studio began, because we had an 8-track studio. So we would do sessions for anybody in town that wanted to make any kind of a song, with some really hysterical stuff and some good stuff. Learned about the studio, learned about pop writing, because the kind of band they were, there was none of this, you know, let's talk about your feelings stuff. You know, it was, they wanted to hit. Yeah. And so I learned about pop writing, and I learned about all that. Did my time with that band, heard Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and went, oh my goodness, that's the kind of music I want to do. I want to be in a rock band. I don't want to be in a pop band. Yeah.
I heard you were kind of a bad boy in San Diego in the rock music scene.
Well, I became one, because when I left college, a lot of people talk about remembering the day they came to the Lord. I remember the day I kind of rejected my faith. when I left college, I was so angry at all of Christendom, at everything about it. I just went, forget it. This is a bunch of nonsense. And so, because I didn't know who I was, as I began to form my own bands and go out and play around San Diego, I kind of invented this character. And a little note here, I did not know who my real father was. I didn't even know. I thought my first stepfather was my father my entire life until I was 21, even though I hadn't seen him, until my grandmother told me, no, another man was your father. And here was his name, and here's a picture of him. No, he was put in prison. Yeah. And then he was, I've since kind of gotten some more information, but that's a whole other story in itself, a rather sad story, to be honest. But so at 21, I find out my real name's Elias, not Hilton. I mean, so I just created this person, this character, and it was a time of punk rock, and everybody had to have an attitude. And we weren't a punk band, but we were playing in punk clubs and biker clubs in San Diego. It was very split down the middle. Or, you'd play at like some kind of Jimmy Buffett kind of place. We didn't fit in any of those really things. We were kind of doing our own thing.
Yeah.
And I kind of developed a little bit of an attitude to. I developed a lot of an attitude, and eventually developed a big substance abuse problem. Yeah. And that basically wiped out my 20s. I had a couple of wonderful opportunities to be signed to major labels. I blew them both, just by either staying with wrong management or by my own behavior. So by the time I was 29, I was on the outs. I was gotten kicked out of whatever band I was in, and I was sleeping on a garage floor in Pacoima and wondering what to do and what had happened and why I'd screwed up so bad. And I wound up coming back to the Lord. I in a real way, in a real broken, serious, grown-up way of just help me. I need help. And it was almost a supernatural experience. I wouldn't say it actually was, but it came very close to feeling like God almost actually reaching out and touching me. And really? I was reconverted. Yeah, I came back, and I don't know if you'd be reconverted. I mean, I'll leave that to all the heads to figure out what that means. And wound up going back to church and met Linda in that period of time, and she already had 2 kids. And
did you meet her at church?
No, I met her. She was in a band down in San Diego too, so I met her down there at my absolute worst, and then wound up stuck up in LA on the garage floor, wondering what to do with my life. Mm-hmm. And she found me and stayed in touch with me, and I didn't want to date. I was such damaged goods. There was no way. And with her having 2 kids, it was like, forget it. You're barking up the wrong tree, sister. Go find some guy that, whatever. Plus her family, they all came from her dad was the head coach of the USC Trojans at the time. It's like, what are you talking about? I've got a mohawk, I'm a drug addict. I'm lost. I have no band. Nobody cares about me. I've blown everything. Well, she hung in there. That's the kind of person she is. And 2 years later, we married.
Wow.
We went through a lot, and it was very controversial at the time. The whole idea of divorce and the church, and this was in '87. They weren't quite as cavalier as they are about it now. Mm-hmm. They really made us go through a lot of pre-counseling. And Jack Hayford at Church on the Way, where we attended, actually officiated our wedding. So that was nice, and we began our life together.
Wow. In San Diego or Los Angeles?
We were up in L.A.
Okay.
And I got a job at a law firm and kept playing music. But I'll tell you, Aaron, so I get through that whole overdose, all the hell that I put myself through in the 20s. It just kind of came to a head around November of 84 when I was 29. And now I'm in my 30s. Now I turned 30 in January 7th of the following year. And for the first time, I finally, in that garage, on the garage floor, with just my guitar, I finally write the first really good song of my life.
Really?
It was the first song that I ever thought. I mean, I could have gotten signed with the songs I had written over the previous years. They were okay, and I had a good band. I had a great band, really, a great little 4-piece band. But the songs weren't that good. I finally wrote a really, really good song, and that was really the beginning of my what do I want, a rebirth as a musician, because I knew my days, the chance to become a pop star were over. So now what it was going to be, what if you're going to do this, how are you going to do it? You know, you still have a creative. Are you getting better? Are you becoming a better guitar player, a better singer, a better writer? What opportunities are there out there for you? And sometimes all we need to see is that we're actually getting better at what we do. You know.
Do you remember the song?
That's all the encouragement. Yeah, it was called Without One Word, and it's on my first album. But I kind of had to emasculate it a little bit because the theme is so dark, and I think they were just a little concerned that it was too dark. The best versions of the song were from 4 years before I made that album. So when I'm talking about 85, when I write the song, I don't really make my first solo album till 89. So all those songs on that first album, I had written on the streets. You know, I went from being Keith Richards to, you know, Ward Cleaver overnight. I've got kids. I've got, you know, I've got a job at a law office. You know, I mean, it's like what happened? We're still going out and playing. I kind of kept bands together, very hard to do in LA. But I was getting better as a writer, and all those songs that are on my first album, that one that, you know, people like so much, I guess, they were written over that 4-year period. I didn't even know what Christian music was.
Okay, hold that thought, Rick. We got to do another commercial break here. We'll be right back, folks, with my guest, Mr. Rick Elias.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
Praying for the light, hanging on for dear life. Who am I? Do you know me? If you know, well then tell me. Ring those suffering chimes. Tell me whose fate is mine. Do you feel like an angel or a pawn in a fable? Son of Job, son of betrayal. There are no strangers at this.
Yeah, welcome back. This is Intersect, powered by Intertalk Radio Network, and my guest is Mr. Rick Elias. I love that song, Do Ya, from
Thanks, buddy. Thank
from
you.
Rick's last record, Job. Man, that whole record, it's just beefy and dark. I like
Thank
beefy
you.
and dark.
Yeah, same here. Same here. I love the fact that the Leonard Cohen rest his soul.
Oh, yeah.
His last album, he goes, you want
You
it
want
darker.
it darker.
Yeah. It's like still bringing the word to the people at 82 years old, man.
Yes, I love that
pretty
record,
cool.
man. I sit out on, well, before it got cold, I would, right
Yeah.
after that record came out, I'd sit out on the deck and listen to that thing in the dark, man. That's a great record.
Oh,
You
he
want
was,
it-
yeah, he's
You want it
great.
darker?
So you were twisting my arm to tell you about my
Yeah.
brief encounters with celebrities as a chauffeur. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, see, okay, so I straighten out. I get out. I'm on the garage floor in Pacoima. I write my first, what I consider to be truly good song. Lynn and I become a couple. I come back to Christ. But I haven't gotten this job at this law firm yet. So I'm picking up work wherever I can. And so is Linda. Linda's, waitressing and whatever. And so I had some friends, they said, well, we know this limo company. We can get you a job with them. I said, okay. I knew the town well, I knew LA like the back of my hand. And I got a job. So I'm working for them. Back in these days, there were phones in the cars, but they kept us on pagers.
Mm-hmm.
And you would work. They'd assign a client to you, and they had some crazy clients. Some of them weren't famous. They were just like, but depending on their state of mind, there was this one drug fanatic, cocaine nut guy they would have me pick up, and he would have me driving him for like 3 days.
Wow.
I mean, this guy would not stop. And, your eyes are crossing, it's like, not a whole lot of regulation in the chauffeur industry.
Was he making
like
deliveries?
No, he wasn't like that. I mean, they weren't asking me to engage in any illegal activity. And at that point, I was so fervently back into my faith. I mean, it almost became a problem for me. One time they wanted me to pick up a centerfold for some girly magazine at Burbank Airport, and then with the photographer in the back, and they were going to take pictures of her, some like amateur gal. And I'm at the airport, and the guy's trying to he's going, hey, stand here like you're opening the door for the girl. She's got barely any clothes on. And so I'm like so torn by my faith. Every picture he took, I made like a really hideous face, like I'd stick my tongue, so they couldn't use the picture. I mean, it kind of got problematic. You kind of go over the deep end a little bit too far sometimes until you find your center. All this to say, the big one is I'd been driving this crazy client for a couple of days, finally get home, crash in my bed, beeper goes off after about an hour. Call my boss. You got to get down to LAX and pick up the Jacksons. They're coming in. So, you got to fill up everything in the back. You got to get just the right. They usually have a list of things just like they would at a concert. It's like a writer, this kind of cranberry juice and this, and make sure there's alcohol in there, and make sure it's clean and vacuumed in the windows. And it's really a production.
Yeah.
And I got down there, and it was after the Victory tour. No. That would have been too early. It was a little bit later, and I can't remember when it was. I kind of get confused on it. But anyway, I get down there, and there's, paparazzi everywhere, and just all this mayhem, and bodyguards that are as big as houses, these NFL player kind of guys, And I've got Marlon, Tito, and Randy and their wives. So I get them into the car, and I'm driving. We get out of LAX, and I get on the 405, and we're driving up. And they put some people would leave that partition down between the driver and the back.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They put it up. They just put it up. So that was fine with me. It's like, it didn't matter to me. But it was very quiet. Those things ride kind of smooth. And I'm going up the 45, and it's traffic, always traffic. And when you pass Sunset going north on the 45, going up towards, if anybody's ever lived there, you're going up towards Mulholland. The freeway kind of does an eastward curve. So it doesn't go straight up the mountaintop through the pass, it kind of curves through the pass, which means you better be watching what you're doing. Well, I was in like the third lane. One over to the left of me was, the fast lane, and there's no shoulder. There's only concrete between the north and southbound. And I'm driving, and I hear them back there talking, and I hear glasses tinkling, yada, yada, yada. They're all happy. I would be too if I was in the back of the limo. And I'm driving them, and, and I just kind of thought I was blinking my eyes. And I mean, you're going about 70 miles an hour, and cars are right on your rear end and right in front of you. I mean, they don't mess around in LA. No, there's none of this one car for every 10 miles per hour. I mean, people are just jamming, man. And I'm in the stretch, and I thought I was closing my eyes, and I don't know what, a second and a half, long enough for me to be crossing over into the fast lane at 70 miles an hour. Thank God nobody was just to the left of us, but he was right behind me. He hits his horn. I open my eyes. I'm headed straight for the stinking wall.
Wow. The
concrete wall. I jerked the wheel to get back over into the third lane, and all I heard was just mayhem in the back of the limo. Like, and people yelling and cussing. Just all this mayhem, just like people flying around, And I'm sitting there, I'm holding the wheel like grim death, my arms are aching, and the little partition comes down, and I think it was Randy. That's how he goes, you all right? Fine. It's fine. Somebody tried to get in our lane. They didn't buy it. I dropped them off in Encino, and I got fired later that day. So there you go.
Oh, they called in and had you fired, huh?
Oh, they called me. They got me. They thought that you sent this crazy person trying to kill us, type thing or something. I don't know what they thought.
That could have been it.
I got fired.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Providence.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So,
anyway.
How did you get to Nashville? How did that happen?
I finally made a demo in '88 of all these songs I'd been writing, because we were playing the clubs in LA. I didn't know there was a thing called Christian music. Last I had any exposure to it was 75, 76. So I make this demo at a really good studio, and I produce it. I know exactly how I want it to be, because I'd worked with producers before, and they'd screwed my music up, and I thought, well, I can do that. I don't need to hire somebody to screw my music up. Let me screw my own music up, which is kind of how I backed into production. But I made a pretty good sounding demo at a good studio. And that got into the hands of one person who took it to Estes Park. I didn't know anything about that. Who handed it off to another guy, great guy, Dave Bunker, who worked with a label and up in Chicago. And they had a deal with a very edgy Christian label in Orange County, back in California. Kind of weird how that is. And they called me and said, would you mind if we'd like to sign you. We want to release this. I said, well, I don't want to release that. to re-record. The band had changed a little bit, and I had some more songs and stuff. But one thing led to another. I wound up signing with that label down. It was Frontline Records, and got the record done, put it out to pretty good acclaim. I mean, even locally. I mean, the LA Times called one of the top 10 records of the year. I mean, of any record. It was really. I kind of had a little bit of on me. We kind of went out and toured, but I didn't know what I was getting into. That whole Christian music thing. I played at Cornerstone was my first gig, and I went, "Oh, I get this. These are my people. I can pair this up." And then I got out in the real world in the van, playing at Bob's Church and in Crib Death, Iowa, with some agenda that he has where he wants to do a love offering or something, or some store, and he wants me to, people are fleeing for the exits hearing me try to do a love offering,
he wants you to do an altar call, of course. Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm not that guy. That's not me, so. My honeymoon was short-lived, and within 6 months they had lost their distribution. So there was a little business lesson as well. They had no distribution, so I'm out there playing to nobody. My record isn't available. Nobody's coming to anything. But I did meet Rich that year on a trip to Guatemala with Compassion International that my good friend Mark Hollingsworth had invited me along on. And that was the beginning of our friendship. Got back, took another job, went with a temp agency. I was working at some financial company, made a second album. Of course, nobody listened to it. These guys didn't have any distribution. They were basically dissolving the company without telling any of the artists and not paying bills and not doing what they needed to do. It wasn't all the guys that were working there really their fault even. It was the guy who owned the label was kind of pocketing all the dough. An evangelist, by the way.
Of course.
The old Calvary Chapel days. Yeah, I know these guys. I don't know where they find them. But anyway, it came down that the second record came out. I had one last shot, and it was to tour with Margaret Becker, but she was here. The whole industry had moved here to Nashville. Sparrow Record. They all used to be out in L.A. They were all here. And I came through here on tour, on a previous tour, and I told Linda, I said, it's really nice there. And she was like, you got to be out of your mind. I'm not moving to Tennessee. But she came through with me, and she loved it as much as I did. So we moved here in 91. And I toured with Maggie in 91 and 92. And the label went belly up, and I was stuck. I was here. Finally I'm just going over the cliff notes, really, just to move us along. Within about a year, I got a deal with BMG as a writer. Linda and I both did. We negotiated a deal, and that kind of stabilized us here in town. It wasn't much money, but it was something. It was enough to pay the rent and to keep the lights on. It wasn't enough money for food or anything else, but it was that. And during this time is when Rich and his manager Gay were coming up with the Ragamuffin Band concept. And I came through, and I think I was playing in Oklahoma City or something, and Gay came down to visit me and see me. I was opening for somebody. And I was really down and out. And I thought, gosh dang, what? I picked up my whole family, moved here. I thought, whatever. I didn't really know what to do next. And she said, well, don't be depressed. We're working on something. And then came the Ragamuffin Band. So I was on my way out. I thought I was ready to go to BMG and go, look, we're moving back to LA. Introduced me to the pop department. We're getting out of here. And Rich kind of kept me in the game, and it was a blessing and curse playing with Rich, and looking back on it now, but mostly a blessing. His friendship was a blessing. His artistry was definitely, I just always appreciated his artistry. That was the thing, because by the time I was on my way out, I was like, they're only listening to the people who aren't saying anything.
Right.
The guys with anything to say, Mark Hurd, Terry Taylor, Mike Rowe, all those bands that you guys were doing up there in Sacramento, Charlie, these guys, Charlie was doing okay, but, with Sparrow and all that as a producer, but it just seemed like the only people they wanted to listen to were people with nothing to say. Mm-hmm. Rich was the only artist that had any significant commercial clout in Christian music, who was saying anything.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And to me, it was or at least the biggest artist. So it was a real blessing to play with him. And man, I think we're going to commercial.
Yeah, that's going to do it for us, man. I told you it goes by fast. Thank you so much.
I told you I'd go down a rabbit hole.
That's all right. Thank you, folks. My guest, Mr. Rick Elias. Thank you so much for coming today.
This is Tony from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al DiMeola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. Pitbullaudio.com.